what if you have problems that it says using your calculator to do them instead? And it says find the sine of 4.27. Notice how there's no little degree after it. So what does that mean if there's no degree after it? So no degree means radians. Is this one of our radians from our circle that we did for our self-starter today? No, this is a weird one. So we need to do this one using a calculator. But your mode of your calculator is probably right now in degrees. Everyone needs to go to the mode of your calculator and change it to radians. Let's look at that together. Okay, here's the mode screen on a TI calculator. If you want to just follow along for now, but you're going to want a calculator later, so if you want to grab one now, that's fine. Here's the mode screen on your TI calculator. Do you see where you would change it from degrees to radians or radians to degrees? Right? So this one would be radians. We set the mode. We quit out of here. Now, all we have to do now that our calculator is in the right mode is just type it in. Super easy. Sine of 4.27. So what's the answer? Negative 0.9037. I don't know. You shouldn't do just one decimal. You should do more than that. Like if you look at a trig chart, they'll do 4 decimals. So I don't know. It'll probably tell you how many to do. Okay. Now here's where it gets tricky. Okay, you can see the examples I have written here. You should be able to handle this one just fine. But tell me, someone raise your hand and tell me, what mode will your calculator have to be in for this? Degrees. Will you just type in the negative when you do it? Yeah, and it'll just give you the right answer. Okay, how do we do something like this? You make sure your mode is what? Radians. Make sure your mode is in radians. The calculator automatically gives you the parentheses. So you just make use of them by typing in pi divide 7 equals and get your answer. Okay. Alright, so these are okay, right? Here's the hard part, and here's why we actually had to talk about this at all. Let's suppose that we need to find the cosecant of 3.88. Is there a cosecant button on your calculator?
No.
Yes.
We can do that, then can we hit the inverse button and it'll be no.
The inverse button is not. Oh, it's sine. Inverse is sine. Reciprocal.
Okay, here is where I have to start harping on something. In trig, inverse and reciprocal are two different things. So I know, I always get that answer, that's why I ask it that way. Because people always say, oh, I should do second sine, and that's the reciprocal because it's sine to the negative 1, is not cosecant though. The purpose of sine to the negative 1, and we're going to talk more about this later, but when you're working with trig functions, you plug in an angle, you get out a decimal or a ratio, right? The sine to the negative 1 would be to plug in a ratio and get out an angle. That's when you're solving for angles. That's what you learned in geometry. So when you use second and then inverse sine, inverse cosine, inverse tangent, those are to find angles. Okay? What we want is cosecant is actually 1 over sine, correct? Sorry, you can't even see that. Cosecant is actually 1 over sine. So to do the cosecant of 3.88, you don't do the inverse sine of 3.88. You don't do the sine of 1 over 3.88. That's also a common mistake. Here is how you do it. How you do it is 1 over sine of 3.88. Do you understand the differences and the common errors that I'm showing here? So you don't do 1 over the angle, and you don't do the inverse sine. You do 1 over the sine of the angle. That's what cosecant means. Okay, so to type that in my calculator, I do 1 divided by the sine of 3.88. And that will be the cosecant. Do you need to try more of those? Because once I've taught you that once, it's the same for cotangent and secant. Are we good? Do you want to try one on your own, just to make sure? Here, one to try your own. You're not answering, so let's do it. Find the cotangent of pi over 5. Everybody try that problem right now. Okay, if you did it correctly, that means you typed it into your calculator as 1 divided by the tangent of pi fifths. So therefore the answer would be 1.3764 if you round it to 4 decimal places. Got it? Now the tricky thing is going to be remembering this little detail later. Okay. We're done with 1-4. You have time to work and finish it before you leave, so you don't have homework over the weekend.
Well, technically, don't we have to finish 1-5?
We're not doing 1-5 at all today.